Well, joining us now is Jewish rights activist Rudy Rochman, an alumni of Columbia University. Now, Rudy, videos of these pro-Palestinian protests are spreading like wildfire on social media. On one hand, Jewish students say that these protests are simply anti-Israel, not anti-war. And on the other hand, you have those who are claiming that they're peaceful. What is actually going on here?
Thank you, Natasha. Well, first of all, we need to understand that these students are not pro-Palestinian, because if you care about Palestinians, you need to care about all Palestinians, not just some. And what I mean by that is when Palestinians are dying by the thousands in the Syrian civil war, these students and professors and administrators, they don't talk about them. When Palestinians are by the hundreds of thousands of refugee camps in Lebanon or in Jordan, they don't talk about them. When they're suffering under the Palestinian Authority or Hamas, they don't talk about them. When they're suffering on the border of Gaza and Egypt, they don't talk about them. They care only about Palestinian suffering, which is legitimate when it has to do with Israel. But of course, they remove all the context as to why we even got into this situation in order to cherry pick instances of Palestinian suffering to be manipulated to create an agenda and material to attack Israel and the Jewish people, which only keeps the loop of suffering going because it continues to fuel the conflict, which allows Israelis and Palestinians to continuously suffer. So what we've been seeing right now on college campuses, and the reason why universities are so important, is because they represent the future political and intellectual class of the next generation. And what they're trying to do for already 20 years, even before my time when I was a student there, to convince the future leaders of the US, those that will be in politics, those that will be in media, those that will be in law, in medicine, those that will be the next professors or educators for younger grades, and have them come to a conclusion that if they want to create a better and more just world, they also have to be against Israel and against the Jewish people. And they use Palestinians to get them to that conclusion, but also use intersectionality with other minority groups in their suffering to ride on their struggles and get them to the conclusion that they need to use their energy against Israel.
Now, you yourself were a student at Columbia University. What was your experience like there as a Jewish student? I also know that you were in New York recently filming videos on the streets, essentially trying to speak with young people about what has been going on here in Israel and the Gaza Strip.
So I started university first at UCLA, right out of the army. And that's when I realized that there was a growing movement of anti-Semitism on college campuses. At that time, most of the Jewish institutions and organizations weren't talking about it. And if they were trying to throw it under the bus or under the rug in order for people not really to mention it. And I got really fed up with the fact that the Jewish community had a lack of activism. You don't want to hear about Black rights from KKK members. You don't want to hear about women rights from misogynists. So are the only people narrating the story of Israel those that are against Israel and against the Jewish people? So in that time, I went on Google and I typed in #1 most anti-Semitic university in North America, and Columbia University, not surprisingly, was #1. So I decided to transfer there. And the message that I have is the solution to this problem is not going to be short-term, it's going to be long-term, and it's not going to come from the top down, from the bottom up. We can't expect politicians like Eric Adams or the Speaker of the House or the President or whoever else in political power, or the administration, the Dean of the university, the President of the university, to take actions against the majority of the people. If the majority of the people have been convinced that Israel is the wrong thing and the Jewish people should be ostracized, then this is what they're going to support, even if they don't necessarily personally agree with it. So if we'd like to see change, it has to come from the students, not from the organizations. The organizations are resources for the students. And what the students need to do is from the bottom up, shift the pop culture. I took a lot of inspiration in my time from the civil rights movement. You know, it's pretty crazy that we go back 67 years ago and people of color did not have equal rights just based on their pigmentation of their skin. But yet today, if we were to go to a university like Columbia and someone were to say something racist, they would be automatically ostracized from university. Yet 60 years ago, that was a common view of the majority of the population. So how do we go from point A to point B? Well, it was from the bottom up. People stood up, fought for their rights, earned their rights, bled, sweat, and even some of them died in order to make sure to shift society to the direction in which it became. And the Jewish people need to understand, if we want rights, we need to fight for them, and we need to earn them. And it's very simple for the Jewish world in diaspora. It's either you fight back now and you win, or you leave now and you come back home.
Now, you're seeing a lot of people arguing online that there are also Jews taking part in these protests. We saw it in that video, who are against the continuation of the Israel-Hamas war. What is your response to that?
So there's a class I took in university that talks about women in abusive relationships and the ways that women can respond to that. And I think it's very much so telling to our situation. So let's say a woman is in an abusive relationship with a husband who's beating her. Way number one, a woman can respond to that is she can fight back, defend herself, remove herself from the situation, and make sure it doesn't happen again. Way number two is to make excuses, pretend it wasn't such a big deal, it was just one time. And way number three is to blame herself and say, no, it was my fault, I should have done this, I should have done that. And that's the same way Jews are dealing with anti-Semitism. You have some Jews who stand up and fight back, which aren't in the majority. You have most Jews who put their heads down and pretend it's not a big problem, or say, oh, it's against Israel, it's not against me, I'm a Jew, I'm not connected to Israel. And then you have some Jews from the far left to the far right to Natola Kalta and wherever they exist that side with their oppressor and come to the conclusion that they need to be with the side that's choosing to oppress their people, and either consciously or subconsciously thinking that by doing that they will be protected and not subjugated to the oppression that they're seeing faced to the larger Jewish community. And so this is where they're coming from. If I saw a woman that was blaming herself for her beating husband, I wouldn't call her a self-hating woman. I would feel bad at her being broken from her trauma. And so when we look at other Jews that are broken due to generational trauma that we carry, or due to social pressures where they're told that if you support Israel, you'll be ostracized, so be against Israel, we need to help those Jews become empowered and to heal them from their situation.
All right, so final question, quick answer here because we're running low on time. How do you think the Jewish community needs to respond right now? What needs to take place?
So it's going to come from the students. It's going to come from the grassroots, from the bottom up, and it's simple. Empower, narrate, protect. Empower means give the tools to the students, Jews and our non-Jewish allies, to be able to debate, to be able to do public speaking, to be able to know all the counter-narratives against Israel, to be able to create coalitions or break coalitions. Number two is narrate, be able to tell the story in the language of your generation. And number three is protect. Any and every movement against Israel, against the Jewish people from every side of the spectrum, we need to go out there and expose them for what they are.
All right, Rudy Rochman, thank you for joining us on I-24 News.